My name is Lucia Santos. I'm 62 years old, and I never imagined I'd reach this age recounting a story that still pains me as much as it did the day it all happened. It was a typical Thursday in September, one of those days that start like any other, but end up changing our lives forever. I was tidying up the house, as I always did, when I found my daughter Camila's mobile phone, forgotten on the kitchen table. She'd rushed out to work and left it there, plugged into the charger. I thought about putting it in a drawer until she returned, but then the messages started flooding in. First, there were some notifications from the bank, then work messages, all normal stuff. But then a message appeared in a WhatsApp group called Amigas da Vida, Friends for Life, that caught my attention because of its name. Camila always spoke of these friends. She said they met every month to chat, vent, and support each other. I always found their friendship beautiful. The first message I saw was from Patricia, asking how living with her mother was after the separation. Camila had separated from her husband 8 months prior and moved back to my place in Sydney with my 10-year-old grandson, Gabriel. I welcomed them with open arms, happy to help my daughter through a difficult time and to have my grandson close by again. I thought it was a blessing for all of us, but Camila's response sent a chill down my spine. She said living with me was a nightmare, that I was a nagging, controlling old woman, and that she couldn't stand my suffocating presence any longer. She said she was just pretending to be happy about the situation, because she needed someone to look after Gabriel while she worked. My heart pounded. I continued reading, even though I knew I shouldn't, even though I felt like each word was a blade slicing through my soul. Camila went on to say that I was a bitter person, that I complained about everything, and that she was embarrassed to take me out places, because I always caused trouble. She said she was saving money to rent an apartment just to get rid of me, because she couldn't bear to pretend she loved me anymore. Her friends responded with emojis of understanding. Some even laughed, saying they perfectly understood that mothers from our generation were indeed difficult to tolerate. One of them suggested Camila be tougher with me, set boundaries, and put me in my place. My home, as if I were an out-of-place object in the very house I'd built through sheer sacrifice. I sank into the kitchen chair, my legs trembling, the world spinning precariously around me. For 42 years, I had poured my entire existence into that girl. I'd raised her alone after her father abandoned us when she was merely 3. I'd worked 2 jobs for years to fund her education, her clothes, her dreams. I'd foregone relationships, travel, anything a woman my age might desire, to always be available for her. And now I discovered all of it was perceived as smothering, as something that bothered her. Throughout all those months they lived with me, I believed we were forging beautiful memories. Gabriel doing his homework at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner. Camila arriving home from work and regaling me with tales of her day. The 3 of us watching a movie together on the weekend. I thought we were a close-knit family, navigating a difficult period together, but I came to realize it was merely a situation of convenience for her, a necessity she tolerated until she could extricate herself from me. If you're listening to this story and recognize your own predicament, please leave a comment sharing how you navigate familial disappointments. Your experience might offer solace to others enduring similar circumstances. Tears began to stream down my face as I returned the mobile phone to its place. I attempted to resume my household chores, but my mind refused to focus on anything else. Every room in the house served as a reminder of some moment I'd misinterpreted, some smile I now knew was disingenuous, some display of affection that, in reality, was merely performative. When Gabriel arrived home from school that afternoon, as he always did, running to greet me with a hug and recount his day, I received him with a broken heart. Was he, too, being coached by his mother to be affectionate towards me? Was that genuine love I felt from him real, or merely something Camila taught him to keep me content and willing to care for him? This doubt wounded me almost as deeply as discovering the truth about Camila. Gabriel told me about a presentation he would give at school, about a science project he was developing, about the new friends he had made. I listened, trying to maintain normality, but inside I was shattered. How can a mother pretend for so long? How can she look me in the eye every day, accept my food, sleep peacefully in my house, knowing she considers me a burden? When Camila arrived home from work that night, she came into the kitchen, where I was finishing washing the dishes, and gave me a kiss on the forehead, as she always did. "Hi, Mum, how was your day?" she asked in that affectionate tone that I had always found genuine. I looked at her, trying to find any sign of falsity, any clue that would show me she was acting, but she seemed perfectly natural. How can someone be such a convincing actress within their own home? I replied that my day had been normal. I asked about her work, about the projects she was developing. We talked for a few minutes about everyday things, as we always did, but now every word sounded hollow to me. I knew that, behind that smile, she was counting the days to get rid of my presence. During dinner, I watched her every gesture, every expression, trying to. When she praised the food I had prepared, when she laughed at a silly joke Gabriel told, when she asked about my plans for the weekend, everything seemed like a well-rehearsed performance. The evening passed slowly and painfully. Lying in my bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our history, trying to identify when things changed, when I stopped being a beloved mother and became a weight in her life. I remembered when she was little and said I was the best mother in the world, when she was a teenager and confided her secrets to me, when she graduated from college and said that everything she had achieved was thanks to my support. Was all of that also pretense? Did she always see me as a difficult person and just disguise it better when she was younger? The following days were a silent torture. I tried to act normally, but every interaction with Camila reminded me of the terrible words I had read. When she asked me to pick up Gabriel from school because she had an important meeting, I wondered if she really had a meeting or if she was just taking the opportunity to have a few hours away from me. When she thanked me for the lunch I prepared, I heard sarcasm, where I used to hear gratitude. When she recounted her workday, I'd ponder whether she was being genuine or merely adhering to a social convention to maintain household harmony. A week after the discovery, Camila received a phone call that altered our routine. It was a job offer in Adelaide, an opportunity she had been pursuing for months. She came to discuss it with me in the lounge, her expression one I now knew how to interpret correctly. It wasn't concern for family, but an anticipation of freedom. "Mum, an incredible job opportunity has come up in Adelaide," she announced, settling beside me on the sofa. "It's a management position at a large company, excellent salary, health plan, everything I've ever wanted, but it would mean moving there with Gabriel." I feigned surprise. I inquired about the specifics, about what it would entail for Gabriel to leave a school where he was adapting well, about the distance between us, but I already knew the answer. She had considered everything. She had even chosen a school for Gabriel, had apartment plans, a completely new life, far from his suffocating mother. "I know it will be difficult being away from you, Mum," she said, taking my hand with that feigned tenderness I now recognized. "But it's a once-in-a-career chance. Gabriel will adapt quickly. Children are resilient, and you can visit us whenever you like. Visit whenever you like." As if I were a stranger who needed to schedule an appointment to see my own grandson. As if our shared life together was less important than a better salary. But I already knew it wasn't about money, it was about escaping me. I said I understood, that I wanted her to be happy, that I would support her decision. She seemed surprised by my easy acceptance. Perhaps she had expected more resistance, more drama, but I lacked the energy to fight for someone who didn't want me around. Thank you for following along this far. It truly gives me the strength to continue sharing this painful story. If you've also experienced similar family situations, your presence here comforts me. That night, I contemplated what my life would be like after they departed. Alone in that large house, after so many months, readjusting to the sounds of children, to the mess of toys, to the joy of having family nearby. Camila began to organize for the move with an enthusiasm that it pained me. I searched for apartments online, schools for Gabriel, and made lists of things to take and things to leave behind. I spoke on the phone with friends about their plans, and I overheard snippets of these conversations that confirmed my suspicions. "I'll finally have my independence back," she told someone. "It's going to be liberating." Liberating. That word echoed in my head for days. Being free of me was liberating for her. During the 2 weeks preceding the move, I tried to create good memories with Gabriel. I took him to the park, to the cinema, we bought ice cream, we talked about life. He was excited about the move, talking about the new school, the big city, the adventures he would have, but he also showed concern for me. "Grandma, won't you be very lonely?" he asked on one of our outings. "Can I spend my holidays here with you?" That childlike innocence broke my heart. Gabriel still didn't understand that it wasn't a temporary move, that I probably wouldn't be coming back here, that our time together would be reduced to sporadic visits and video calls. I explained that he would be away for a while, but that the love between us would never change, no matter the distance. I promised I would always keep in touch, that I would always be available whenever he needed me. On the eve of their departure, Camila organized a special dinner. She insisted on cooking herself, preparing dishes she knew I liked, even buying a dessert from the expensive downtown bakery. During dinner, she gave an emotional speech about gratitude, about how important my support had been during this difficult period of her life, about how she would always fondly remember these months we spent together. I listened, knowing it was just another performance, another demonstration of her ability to feign feelings she didn't possess. But Gabriel was there, beaming at seeing his mother and grandmother seemingly in harmony. So, I kept smiling and thanked her for her words. On the morning of their departure, I helped load the last boxes into the car. Gabriel hugged me tightly, promised to call me every day. He said I was the coolest grandma in the world. Camila also hugged me, a long, tight embrace that, to any external observer, would have appeared emotional and genuine. "Thank you for everything, Mum," she whispered in my ear. "You were instrumental in this new beginning of my life. Fundamental. I had been a useful tool in a moment of need, nothing more." As the car disappeared around the corner, I stood frozen on the pavement for a few minutes, feeling the weight of the silence that once again enveloped my home. It was as if the past 8 months had been merely a dream, a period of happiness that had proven illusory. The ensuing solitude was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It wasn't simply the physical absence of Camila and Gabriel, but the stark realization that our relationship had always been built on a foundation of deceit. In the initial days, I attempted to maintain the routine I had established with them. I woke at the same hour, prepared breakfast for 3 out of habit, and tidied the rooms that were now eerily empty. Gabriel called every day, as he'd promised, telling me about his new school, the friends he was making, his adventures in the big city. We chatted via video call, and I could see the genuine longing for me in his eyes. This offered some solace, knowing that at least my grandson's affection was real. Camila also called with a frequency that initially surprised me. Every day she'd ring to check how I was, if I needed anything, if I was managing to adjust to the empty house. We'd discuss trivialities, the weather, the news, her new routine in Adelaide. These calls were confusing, as they seemed to convey genuine care and concern. Had I misinterpreted her intentions? Did Camila miss me more than I had anticipated? But then, on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after their move, I discovered the truth behind these daily calls. Camila called as she always did. We spoke for a few minutes about everyday matters. She hung up, saying she needed to sort out some work-related issues. Minutes later, My phone rang again, and it was her. But I realized the call had been accidentally left open. She was talking to someone in the car, presumably on her way home. "Right, I've fulfilled my obligation for today," I heard her say. "My mum is so clingy, if I don't call her every day, she'll start nagging me, making a fuss. It's better to call for 5 minutes a day than to put up with complaints later." The person on the other end chuckled and said something I couldn't quite make out. Camila continued, "She still hasn't understood that this phase of being a present grandma is over. Now, it's everyone for themselves. Life, but I have to wean her off gradually, otherwise it turns into endless crying." I was being weaned, as if I were a dependent child who needed to be taught to live alone, as if my mother's love were an inconvenient weakness that needed to be managed. I hung up the phone before hearing more and stood there in the living room, feeling a pain in my chest that made me think I was having a heart attack. So, the daily calls weren't affection, they were strategy. Camila had calculated the minimum dose of attention necessary to keep me satisfied and not bother her with emotional demands. It was as if she were administering medication to an annoying patient. That night, for the first time since they had left, I didn't answer her call. She tried 3 times, sent a message asking if I was okay, if something had happened. The next day, she called again several times. On the 5th call, I decided to answer. "Mom, what happened yesterday? Why didn't you answer my calls?" she asked with a concern that I now knew was calculated. "I was busy," I replied curtly. "You don't need to worry about me every day, Camila. You have your new life, I have mine." She was silent for a few seconds, perhaps surprised by my different tone. "Mom, you're acting strange. Did something happen?" "I'm worried." Worried, not about my well-being, but about the possibility that I was figuring out her game and that it would complicate her life. "Thank you for continuing to accompany me on this difficult journey. Your support means a lot to me during this time of pain." I said everything was fine, that I was just getting used to the new routine, that she didn't need to call me every day because I was learning to live alone. I ended the call cordially but firmly. From that day on, I established a new standard. I only answered her calls when I felt like it. I spoke politely and briefly. I didn't ask about her life, nor did I share details of mine. When she asked if I was okay, I would reply yes and change the subject. I noticed that this unsettled her. Camila was used to seeing me as someone dependent, needy, always eager for attention. When I stopped acting that way, she didn't know how to react. The calls became more spaced out, more formal, less concerned with keeping me satisfied. It was exactly what I had expected. Without the obligation to wean me, she revealed her true willingness to maintain contact with me. Almost none. I then began to wonder what other lies I had believed over the years. I sifted through chests of memories, old letters, gifts she had given me, trying to separate what was genuine from what was convenience. It was a painful, but necessary, exercise. I remembered when she was a teenager, and always came home on time, when she went out with friends. I thought it was responsibility and respect, but it was probably just fear of losing the perks of having a mother who didn't question her spending and still gave her an allowance. I remembered the expensive gifts she used to give me on Mother's Day and my birthdays. I was touched by her generosity, but now I realized they were investments to maintain my satisfaction and availability. I remembered how she always included me in social events with her friends when she was younger. I felt special for having a daughter who enjoyed my company, but perhaps she just wanted to show the other girls that she had a modern, friendly mother. Each reinterpreted memory was like the story of my life as a mother was being rewritten, and the new version was much less beautiful than the previous one. I also began to question the sacrifices I had made for her over the years. Was it worth working so hard to pay for her studies if she had no genuine gratitude? Was it worth giving up relationships to always be available for her if I was seen as a burden? Was it worth saving so much to leave an inheritance for someone who could barely tolerate my presence? If you are experiencing something similar, share it here in the comments on how you have been dealing with this pain. Sometimes, sharing our experiences helps others feel less alone in this situation. 2 months after the move, I received a call from Gabriel, which completely changed my perspective on everything I was going through. It was a Sunday afternoon, and he called me secretly from his mother, whispering as if he were doing something forbidden. "Grandma, can I talk to you about something serious?" he asked in that childish voice, trying to sound adult. I said that, of course, he could talk to me about anything, always. "Mommy said that you don't want to talk to us anymore, that you're angry with us. Are you coming back?" he asked. And my heart ached. "She said you'd changed, that you'd become a bad person, and that I shouldn't care about you so much, because you might get even angrier." I was frozen. Camila was using my own grandson against me, manipulating his perception of me to justify the distance she herself had created. It was a cruelty I hadn't expected even from her. "But Grandma, I don't believe that," Gabriel continued. "You've never been a bad person. You've always been affectionate with me, you've always treated me well. Why would you be angry with me if I haven't done anything wrong?" At that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could continue pretending everything was fine to avoid upsetting Gabriel's relationship with his mother, or I could be honest with him in a way that was appropriate for his age. I chose a middle ground. I explained that I wasn't angry with him, that my love for him would never change, but that sometimes adults go through difficult phases and need time to regroup. I said his mother was right about me having changed, but it wasn't out of anger, it was because I was learning to live differently. "Gabriel, sometimes the people we love can't show love in the way we'd like," I said, choosing my words carefully. "That doesn't mean the love has ended, it means each person needs to discover their own way to be happy." He was silent for a few moments, processing what I had said. "Grandma, do you still love me even though we are far apart?" he asked, with a vulnerability that brought tears to my eyes. "Always, my love. I will always love you. It doesn't matter where you are or where I am, this is the kind of love that never changes." We ended the conversation with him promising to call me whenever he felt like it, whether hidden or not, and with me promising to always be available for him. After that call, I made a decision that had been brewing for weeks, to completely change my life. At 62, I decided I deserved to live for myself for the first time. I started making plans that didn't involve being useful to anyone. Plans based solely on what I wanted. The first thing I did was enroll in a painting course I'd always wanted to take. Then I enrolled in academia, I hired a personal trainer, and began to care for my body in a way I never had before. I bought nice clothes, underwent aesthetic treatments, and changed my hairstyle. It was as if I were discovering myself as a person, not as a mother or grandmother, but as Lucia. I also started attending social groups for people my age. I met other women who had gone through similar experiences, who had also discovered late that dedicating one's entire life to children isn't always rewarded with gratitude. Some of them had even more painful stories than mine. A lady named Rose told me she discovered her son was stealing money from her account to fund his addictions. Another, Margarita, told me her daughter placed her in a nursing home against her will so she could sell the family home. Comparing my situation to these women's, I realized I was still in a privileged position. Camila never stole from me, never physically mistreated me, never tried to institutionalize me against my will. She simply didn't love me in the way I wished to be loved. And perhaps that was a limitation of hers, not necessarily an intentional malice. This new perspective brought me a certain peace. It's worth it for giving me the strength to continue telling this story. Your attention encourages me to be transparent about this difficult phase of my life. I began to understand that each person has their own capacity for love and that this capacity is influenced by life experiences, personality, and even by factors beyond our control. Perhaps Camila truly couldn't feel for me the love I felt for her, and forcing her to feign this sentiment was neither fair to me nor to her. With this understanding, I gradually developed an acceptance of our relationship. It wasn't the relationship I dreamt of having with my daughter, but it was the relationship possible between us. And perhaps it was better to accept this reality than to live in a painful fantasy. 3 months after the move, Camila called to tell me she had met someone, a colleague, divorced, the father of an 8-year-old girl. She was radiant, telling me about him, about how well they felt together, about how Gabriel was liking his new uncle. I listened to it all with a calmness that surprised me. Before this discovery about our true feelings, I would probably have been anxious about how a new relationship, her presence would impact our dynamic, whether I would remain significant in their lives, or if she would include me in her plans. But now, I simply wished for her happiness, without the expectation of being a part of it. That's wonderful, darling. I am genuinely pleased you're feeling well, I responded sincerely. Gabriel had mentioned something about liking him. We discussed the matter naturally, without any tension. It was a conversation between two adults who cared for each other in a mature fashion, devoid of the unreciprocated expectations that had previously defined our relationship. After that call, I realized I had achieved something important. I had discovered a way to relate to Camila that didn't hinge on her reciprocating my affection with the same intensity. I could cherish her, champion her happiness, and be available when she needed me, without feeling frustrated by not receiving the same in return. This emotional liberation was the most valuable gift I received from that entire painful experience. 6 months after relocating to Adelaide, my life had been completely transformed. I, who had always lived my life revolving around others, was learning to live for myself, discovering that this wasn't selfishness, but rather self-care. My current routine incorporated activities that brought me joy. Painting classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the gym on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and a walking group in the park. Every Saturday morning, I'd forged genuine friendships with people who knew me as Lucia, not as Camila's mother or Gabriel's grandmother. These individuals appreciated my company, my conversation, and my perspective on the world. I didn't need to be useful to them, I just needed to be myself. One of the most special friendships I developed was with Antonio, a 65-year-old gentleman I met at the walking group. He had been a widower for 3 years, with 2 children, who lived in different cities and visited infrequently. We found common ground in our experiences of familial loneliness, but also in our resolve to build fulfilling lives, irrespective of our children's presence or absence. Antonio was kind, courteous, possessed a sense of humor, and treated me with a respect I had almost forgotten I deserved. We started having lunch together after our walks, then began going to the cinema once a week, and subsequently started cooking for each other on Sundays. It wasn't a romance, it was a mature and affectionate companionship that filled a void in my life. Gabriel continued to call me once a week, always behind his mother's back, always full of news to share. He had settled in well at his new school, made friends quickly, and was enjoying living in a larger city. He was also getting used to his mother's boyfriend, who, according to him, was nice and not an. Through these conversations with Gabriel, I learned that Camila was genuinely happy in her new relationship. She had found someone who made her laugh, who shared household responsibilities, who actively participated in Gabriel's upbringing. It was precisely the kind of partnership she had always wanted and never had with her ex-husband. I was genuinely happy for her. Camila deserved to be happy, she deserved to have a healthy relationship, she deserved to build the family she had always dreamed of. The fact that I wasn't a central part of this happiness didn't diminish my joy that she had achieved what she wanted. In September, almost a year after the move, Camila called me with news that took me by surprise. "Mum, I'm getting married again," she said without preamble. "Pedro proposed to me yesterday, and I accepted. We want to do something small, just close family and intimate friends." My first thought was to wonder if I was included in the close family category, or if I would simply be informed about the event. But this time, instead of feeling anxious about my role in the situation, I simply asked, "How wonderful, darling. When will it be?" "We're thinking December, right here in Adelaide. Pedro's family is from here. It would be easier for everyone," she replied. "Would you like to come? I know it's far, but it would be important for me to have you here. Would you like to come?" It was an invitation, not an expectation. She was including me because she wanted to, not because she felt obligated. This subtle difference meant a lot to me. "Of course I'd like to come," I replied. "It will be a pleasure to meet Pedro in person and celebrate this new chapter of your life." We discussed practical details, where I would be staying, what the ceremony would be like. Camila seemed genuinely interested in including me in the preparations, asking my opinion on a few things, wanting to know if I had any suggestions. It was a natural participation, without the forced artificiality that had characterized our previous relationship. If you've reached this point in the story, leave a comment telling me which part touched your heart the most. I love to know how those experiences resonate with others. 2 weeks after that conversation, Camila did something I hadn't expected. She called me just to chat, with no specific topic, no important news to share. We talked about the weather, about the flowers in my garden that I was starting to cultivate, about the films we had recently watched. It was a relaxed, natural conversation lasting almost an hour. When I hung up the phone, I realized that, for the first time in a long time, I had spoken with my daughter without dissecting her every word, searching for falseness or expediency. We simply talked like two people who cared about each other. Perhaps this was the true nature of our relationship. Not the suffocating dependency I had created, nor the rejection she had developed. Perhaps we were simply two people who loved each other in different ways and needed space for that love to manifest healthily. The discovery of the messages, however painful, had freed us to build a more honest relationship. I no longer had to pretend that I didn't mind being taken for granted, and she no longer had to feign feelings she didn't have. We could now relate based on what we truly felt for each other, without the layers of unfulfilled expectations that had made our coexistence burdensome. Thank you for accompanying me this far. Your presence makes this healing journey less lonely. In October, Antonio proposed a trip to see the Iguacu Falls in Brazil. "Lucia, have you ever been there?" he asked during one of our lunches. "I'm keen to go, but I don't want to go alone. How about we make our first trip together?" The idea greatly excited me. I had wanted to see the falls for years, but I always postponed the trip because I was busy with other people, other responsibilities. Now, for the first time, I could make a decision based solely on my own desires. We planned the trip for November, a month before Camila's wedding. It would be my first trip with a companion since, well, ever. Even when I was married, I had never traveled for pleasure. It was a symbolic milestone of my new life. When I told Camila about the trip, she reacted with a joy that seemed genuine. "That's great, Mum. You deserve to have fun, to see new places. This friend of yours seems to be good company for you." She didn't. He showed no jealousy or possessiveness. He made no comments about me replacing family with strangers. He was simply happy that I was building a rich and enjoyable social life. This reaction confirmed to me that we were on the right track towards a more mature relationship. The trip to Foz do Iguacu was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Seeing those majestic waterfalls, feeling the energy of nature, sharing this experience with someone who genuinely enjoyed my company, was transformative. Antonio was an ideal travel companion. He respected my pace, shared decisions with me, and made a point of photographing moments he knew I'd want to remember. During the 3 days we spent there, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in decades. It was as if I had finally given myself permission to be happy in my own way, in my own time, with the people I chose to have by my side. Camila's wedding in December was the final punctuation mark on our family's transformation. When I arrived in Adelaide on the eve of the ceremony, I was welcomed warmly, not just by Camila and Gabriel, but also by Pedro and his daughter, Sophia. They had prepared the guest room with care. There were fresh flowers, soft towels, even a basket of chocolates on the bedside table. During the rehearsal dinner, I realized I occupied a natural place in the family, without being the center of attention, nor was I ignored. I conversed with Pedro's relatives as an interesting person in my own right, not merely as the bride's mother. I spoke about my trip to Foz, my painting classes, my new routine. People listened with genuine interest, asked questions, shared their own experiences. Gabriel was radiant. He had grown so much in such a short time, becoming more mature, more confident. During the ceremony, he was the ring bearer, and made a point of introducing me to his new friends as his grandmother, who is the bravest person he knows. When I asked why I was brave, he replied, "Because you learn to live alone without being sad, and that's very difficult." Childlike wisdom sometimes surprises us with its accuracy. Camila looked beautiful on her wedding day, radiating a happiness that was impossible to feign. During the ceremony, as she and Pedro exchanged vows, I felt a profound emotion watching my daughter find true love. It was a different kind of love than what she felt for me, a passionate romantic love, but it was real and completed her in a way I never could. At the party, we danced to a slow song, like we used to when she was little. "Mum, thank you for being here," she whispered in my ear. "I know our relationship has been through difficult times, but I'm glad we made it here." It was a simple thank you, without grand dramatic declarations, but laden with sincerity. I replied that I was happy too, that I wished her great happiness with Pedro, and that I would always be available whenever she needed me. I returned to Sydney on Sunday with a sense of closure. My daughter was remarried, happy, stable. My grandson was growing up in a structured and loving family. I had found my own way of being happy. We all had our place in the world, and those places didn't need to completely overlap for us to love each other. In the following months, we established a routine of contact that worked for everyone. Camila called me fortnightly, natural and pleasant conversations. Gabriel called me weekly, always eager to share his adventures. I visited Adelaide every 3 months, always staying at their place, always welcomed, but without pressure to extend the visit beyond what was comfortable for everyone. Pedro proved to be a loving and respectful son-in-law. Sophia, his daughter, adopted me as an extra grandmother. She called me Grandma Lucia, and liked to hear stories about when I was young. Gabriel now had a stepsister he adored, which further completed the family they were building. In May, a year and a half after the discovery that changed everything, Antonio asked me to move in together. "Lucia, we are two sensible seniors who care deeply for each other," he said, with that directness I admired in him. "Why don't we combine our solitudes and build a life together?" The proposal moved and frightened me at the same time. After everything I had gone through, the idea of sharing my life with someone again made me apprehensive. But Antonio was different. He didn't want me to take care of him, nor did he offer to take care of me. He wanted a partnership of equals, based on companionship and mutual affection. We talked about expectations, about boundaries, about what our routine would be like. We decided to try it out. He would spend 3 months living at my place, and then we would decide if we wanted to make the situation permanent. If it didn't work out, he would return to his a home free of resentment. It was a mature arrangement between two people who knew what they wanted from life. The trial run went so well that in August I sold my house, and we made our union official. It wasn't a formal wedding. It was a practical decision by two people who chose to grow old together. Camila was happy with my decision. "Mum, I feel at ease knowing you're not alone," she said when I told her about Antonio. "You deserve to have someone special in your life." Comment below what was the most memorable moment of this story for you. Your opinion is very important to me. There was no jealousy or possessiveness in her reaction, just genuine joy that I had found companionship and happiness. It was further confirmation that our relationship had matured healthily. Today, 2 years after that terrible discovery, I can say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Knowing the truth about Camila's feelings freed me from an emotional prison I had built myself. It allowed me to stop living for the gratitude of others and start living for my own fulfillment. Antonio and I have a simple, yet rich, life. We travel together, cook together, tend to the garden together. Each of us maintains our individual activities and friends, but we share our daily lives with affection and mutual respect. Camila, Pedro, Gabriel, and Sophia visit us every 2 months, always for joyful and harmonious weekends. Gabriel, now 12, is becoming a sharp and affectionate teenager. Sophia, 10, is a sweet girl who makes me laugh with her mischief. We are an extended, happy family, each in our own role, without excessive demands or unmet expectations. I've learned that love doesn't have to be the same to be true. Camila loves me the way she can, and that's enough. I love her the way I can, without needing her constant approval to feel fulfilled. Gabriel and Sophia love me with the spontaneity of children, and I reciprocate with the joy of someone who has discovered that being a grandmother can be even more delightful when it doesn't come with heavy obligations. Antonio loves me with the maturity of someone who has lived a lot and knows how to cherish simple moments. And I finally love myself with the compassion of someone who has understood that I deserve to be happy regardless of others' opinions. Thanks to have reached the end of this story. Your attention and care have made it possible for me to share this deeply personal and transformative experience. If this story has resonated with you in any way, if you've recognized your own situation at any point, or if you simply wish to send a message of support, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments what you felt upon hearing my story. Sometimes, we need to know we are not alone in our struggles to be able to transform them into growth. Your own experience might be precisely what someone needs to hear today to find the strength to change their circumstances. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming, because I believe that when we bravely share our truths, we build bridges of understanding that can change lives. And if this story taught you anything, if it made you reflect on your own family relationships, or if it simply moved you, tell me here in the comments. I want to know how you deal with family disappointments, what lessons